Hello, everyone. Welcome to Style to Impact Live. If you are here live with me, thank you very much for being here. Let me know in the chat that you're here. I welcome your support and your encouragement as I dive into today's conversation. If you are watching the replay, thank you very much for coming back and listening to today's conversation. I appreciate you all so much. So, thank you for being here, for joining me. It always means a lot to have you here and to share this space with you as we talk about style and how to make style part of your lifestyle, part of your brand, part of um, your voice and using it to represent who you are. So thank you very much for being here. I'm just going to slide over here for a second. Hi. Thank you. Oh, from Orlando. Is that Dominique? If I'm not pronouncing your name correctly, I do apologize. Thank you for being here. I so appreciate you joining me. And so before I start these conversations, I like to kick it off with wellness check-in. I think it's important that we take a moment to pause and to reflect, to understand where we are right now and how we're feeling. And of course, what are some of those tools that you'll need to, help you on your journey? Got it. Thank you. And so help you on your journey. So let me know in the chat, like, how are you feeling? Because taking that moment to pause, I think it's necessary as a way of understanding what is it we need, as I said, and being intentional about how we're showing up for ourselves. So let me know how you're doing. Today it's 60 degrees in Atlanta, but I swear Atlanta's been extremely cold over the last couple of days. And so I've been rocking what I call my preppy layering fun outfits these last couple of days because I need that energy. I need that positivity because during the winter it can be so dark and gloomy, and that sometimes can affect my mental health and how I'm feeling. So if that may be something that you're struggling with, and so I've always encouraged my clients and encourage everyone to um, wear bright colors, right? Embrace that, especially on those dark and gloomy days. So, Caroline, I see you here. Thank you very much for being here. If you're new to this space, I'm Solita Roberts. I'm the founder of Style to Impact. And I truly believe that representation is not just you being in the room, representation is also about how you show up. And so it's this belief that really drives the work that I do, right? It's this belief that I carry with me when I'm working with my clients as a personal stylist to help them create individualized. Basically, what I'm doing is creating an individualized style for women who are ready to change the world, lead successful businesses, and finally feel confident and fierce on the outside as they do on the inside. So if that's you, definitely let's connect. Come and say hi. I appreciate and love to hear from you and of course get your support. So thank you all for being here. If and so today getting into today's conversation, I want to talk about how can you release the fear that you have around um, how you show up and what you're wearing and really step into your authentic personal style. And so I wanted to share a quick story with you for those of you who are new to following me, new to being in this space, sharing this space with me. You might not have heard me saying this, but I've always have this running joke that I have with myself where I'm like, I've been an immigrant all my life. Right. So I was born in the Republic of Guyana, the only English speaking country in South America. And I moved to when I was in my late teens, I moved to Antigua and Barbuda. That's the Twin Island state of Antigua and Barbuda, sun, sea, and sand, white sandy beaches. And so when I was, my family was already there and it was time for me to leave, I remember, being a little bit scared, but at the same time, a little bit excited for new adventures and new journeys and just experiencing a different culture. And so I got to Antigua, and Antigua, if you've never been to Antigua, it's predominantly Black. And so for me, it was just a matter of, I'm going into a space of people that look like me. Coming from the Republic of Guyana, we had a mixed culture, and I fit in quite well within that environment. I never felt like I didn't belong in that space, or I never felt like I had to hide myself. So moving to Antigua, where it's primarily Black, I didn't think that being a Black and being Guyanese would have been a problem. And so when I got there and I realized that my nationality, it wasn't about my race, but it became about my nationality. The fact that I was Guyanese became a problem. And it was this notion that as a Guyanese person, as an immigrant, you there were certain things that we did that identify us as Guyanese. One of the things was like, oh, Guyanese nationals always wear gold jewelry, or the food that we eat. And so when I got into that space, and being in high school and being with the kids, even though I went to a high school which was a Catholic all girls high school, which had the mixed race, different ethnicity and races were in that school. That's when I felt like my nationality was something I needed to hide, and something that I needed not to be bold about. And so I remember just constantly, every time I say something, I said something and someone is like, oh, where are you from? Because I didn't sound like an Antiguan, obviously. And so it meant that obviously I wasn't from there. And it's like, where are you from? And it's like, oh, you're from Guyana. I'll say, I'm from Guyana. And it's like, oh, you Guyanese people. And, I'll hear those comments. And so for the longest while, I stopped wearing gold jewelry because I did not want to I felt I did not want to be stereotyped that way. And so there was this fear of, if I did that, then automatically that's how I would be identified as. And so while you may not necessarily have this specific experience where, you know, being an immigrant in a country and having to hide certain aspects of who you are because you fear that that's all people would say about you and talk about you and have that feeling, I'm sure you've experienced some form of fear that may have stopped you from doing something, or may have stopped you from wearing a particular outfit, a particular clothing that identifies and signifies maybe your tribe, your race, your culture. And because you don't want to be stereotyped, and because you don't want to be put in this box, you may have, you know, been afraid to not express yourself that way. And so I wanted to address this conversation because I see it a lot showing up, not just in the chat where women are like, I'm timid of breaking out of that corporate structure, that corporate culture of what to wear. And, I don't want to be judged. I don't want to be stereotyped. And I've seen it as well with women that I've worked with. They have a fear of, would I be seen as, professional if I try to bring more of myself into what I wear and how I present myself? And I know sometimes that fear is what keeps us stuck, and that fear is what keeps us disconnected from ourselves. And so I wanted to have this conversation. We talk about releasing some of those fears that you might have around your wardrobe, and really learning how to step into your most authentic self. So if you're here with me live, if you're listening to this conversation, whether or not it's on replay or you're here live, let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comments. Do you have any type of fear around your style and what you wear and how you show up in your corporate or your business life? Let me know in the chat if you've had or you have some type of fear surrounding your personal style. And so I'll give you some time to do that. So while you get in the chat and you share that with me, what I'm going to be talking about today is I'm going to use my framework of fear to really address how to release this and really explore how you can be more intentional about the clothing that you wear. And so the F.E.A.R framework that I have is one that I use to conduct workshops. And so I know Black History Month is coming up. We have Women's History Month coming up as well. And so if you are you are in an organization, or you have the ability to champion workplace cultures for authenticity, belonging, and personal development for women in the workplace, and you would like to explore opportunities like other confident building opportunities to really empower the women within your workplace, then of course I'll be happy to chat about what a workshop would look like. So send me a DM and we can definitely connect and talk about the possibilities of having a workshop, conducting a workshop for your organization. And so today I'm going to be covering out of my F.E.A.R framework, I'm going to be covering F and A. So just two components from the framework I'm going to be talking about today. And so F for me, it's identifying the F.E.A.R. As I shared with you my story of being an immigrant, being in a new country, being afraid of that stereotype of if I wore gold jewelry, then it just screams, right? I'm Guyanese. This is who I am. And even though I was not, it wasn't a case where I was feeling like, I was unhappy being a Guyanese. I was proud of where I was from. It wasn't that I wasn't proud of where I was from. It's just that I did not want people to put me in that box and to feel that way. And so for you, it's when it comes to your wardrobe and how you're showing up, it's important that we identify the fears that you have, because I do understand that the fears are there are different scenarios and experiences that you might have gone through that made it jarring for you to show up as yourself, that made it felt as though you could not show up as yourself. And so let's talk about the fears. Make a note of what are some of your fears. That fear may look like a fear of looking unprofessional. It can be a fear of being judged. It can be the fear of being stereotype, of being, the different biases that we as women as experience in the workplace and when we show up, and especially as Black women when we show up. And we don't and you may fear that if you show up from day one, walking into that new job or working with that new client, if you show up dressing in clothing and that represents who you are, then there's that fear of, oh, do I want to work with this person, or should we hire you? What are you going to be like? So is my appearance is going to cause me to lose opportunities, right? And of course there's the fear of what others may think. That's a big one, right? You don't necessarily have to be a people pleaser to have this fear affect you. When it comes to your appearance, and we know the biases, and we know, we don't want to be judged unequally. We want to be seen for expertise, but we also want to feel confident in how we're showing up. We also want to bring our full and authentic self into that space. And so while it's important for organizations and companies to create an inclusive environment so that you can enter that space, if you're working in corporate, you can enter that space knowing that you can bring your full self into that space. Or maybe you're working as an entrepreneur and you need to have the confidence to know that you can take yourself into that business meeting as your full and authentic self, instead of having to worry about all these different things that might or might not happen. And I can tell you from my own personal experience, and while I know my experience as a Black woman growing up in the Caribbean is different from, a black woman, a woman of color, or women in general experience here in the U.S. It's still, there's still some lessons and some parallel that in that I've always been that person who I like people to know who I am from the get go. Like I don't want to ever feel as though I have to shrink to fit into any space, because then it's unhealthy for me. Then it's, me restricting myself from expanding and looking for opportunities and areas in which I can grow and be my genuine and authentic self. Like I cannot be anything else but who I am. And so that's why I encourage the clients that I'm working with, and I encourage you as well, to think about what that will look like for you if you can show up and be your genuine and authentic self, right? And so going back to that first exercise is to really identify the fears, list the fears that you have, because once you see it on paper, then it's like you look at it and you're like, really, why am I afraid of this, right? Like, why am I afraid? What can happen? What is going to happen? We look at both pros and cons, right? If I show up not wearing that navy blue suit, what is it that's going to happen? What do I fear will happen? And seeing it when you write it down, that's when you're like, oh no, there's no reason for me to hide who I am, right? And so it brings me into the second part of the framework of how to release the fear to step into your authentic personal style is to activate your authenticity. I truly believe that authenticity and showing up as your authentic self is a form of advocating for yourself, right? Because you are saying to this, you're saying to the persons in the spaces that you're going into, this is who I am. And I am not going to use any form of emotional energy. I'm not going to shrink myself to fit into the traditional expectations of what and who I should be. Right? And for me that's a powerful thing, because as women of color, we need to be this. I love this Audre Lorde's quote, which says, we must be the change we wish to see in the world. And as women, and as women of color, we know we don't often see a reflection of ourselves on the magazines, like in the magazines, on television, in the boardroom. We don't see women rocking their natural hair. In corporate and in business, we don't see it as much as we should. We don't see women embracing their grays, right? How many commercials have you seen that's telling us, wipe the grays away? Like there's something wrong with us showing our gray hair, right? We don't see that often. And so imagine what it will look like if you, by simply activating your authenticity, by simply showing up as the person that you are, how much of an impact that can have on the generations to come. How much of an impact that you can have in shaping the way women are seen as entrepreneurs, as leaders, as women holding higher office. Like imagine that, by you simply deciding that you're not going to shrink, you're not going to hide, you're not going to conform to this idea of professionalism, which is another conversation that I'm going to go into. It's like redefining what professionalism means, right? Because as women, it's when we entered the workforce, we were given this uniform and we were told to be seen as professional. This is what you have to wear. And so part of the fear that we have is breaking away from that. But imagine if you can shape and change the narrative of how we're seen by simply deciding to show up as yourself, right? Because you have the power. We often think that we don't have the power to change certain things because maybe we don't hold higher office, maybe we're not the decision makers in the companies that we work, or the spaces that we're in. But we're all leaders regardless of what our titles are and what our roles are, right? And so I want you to know this. You have the power to shape the future by simply having the courage to honor your current body and to be intentional about creating your personal style, expressing your personal style to represent and reflect who you are today. I want you to think about it this way. We're running as women of color, we are running a marathon. And so the women before us ran their leg and got us to this space where more of us, we can show up as ourselves, we can use our voice, we can vote, we can run for public office, we can challenge the status quo. There are women before us who ran their leg to get us here today. And they've passed the baton to us, to our generation. And so for us, it's important that we take that baton while we are running our leg of the race, because it doesn't end. There's no end until we have the changes that we need, until we can be seen as equal, and until we can feel confident, until we can have spaces that includes us and accept us for all that we are. It's up to us to hold that baton and run our leg of the race and have the courage to make the changes that's necessary. Small changes can result to big impact, because when we pass the baton off to our kids, our girls, we shouldn't be passing the baton at the same stage that we are today. We should be showing them the growth and the change so that they can take the baton and run their leg of the race by making the changes that's necessary to move us forward as women of color. So when you're thinking about the fears that you have surrounding how you show up, I want you to think about those two things. One, identify the fear, write it down, because seeing it on paper is actually when you look at it and you're like, no, this is not worth me shrinking. This doesn't work me hiding. This does not work me trying to fit into some norm or box that does not or was not built for me in mind. I get to redefine and shape the narrative based on how I show up. And then two, activate your authenticity. What does your authentic self look like? Who do you want to be? How do you want to show up? What do you want to say? Because when you choose courage over caution and fear and freedom over fear, you get to shift the focus back to you, where whenever you're getting dressed, everything that you're wearing represents who you are. Your aesthetic speaks for you. your style becomes a powerful tool for communication. It becomes a powerful tool to boost your confidence. It becomes a powerful tool to attract the opportunities and the people that you're looking to build communities with. And your style is definitely how you tell your story. Like me, wearing gold at the time when I was living in Antigua, and we were being stereotyped that only Guyanese people wear gold. If I had had the courage to do it, then that would have been my opportunity to tell my story. So what pieces of clothing can you wear that will tell your story, that will help you to amplify your brand, will give you the confidence that you need? What in your closet is going to help you do that? Because once you release that fear, the possibilities are unstoppable. And so I want to share with you one more Audre Lorde quote before I leave, which is, I find I am constantly being encouraged to pluck some. I'm going to read that again. Let me just make sure I get that quote right. I'm going to read that quote again. Let's get it right. So Audre Lorde said, let me get that right. This is what she said. I find I'm constantly being encouraged to pluck out one aspect of myself and represent this as the meaningful whole, eclipsing or denying the other parts of myself. And what I like about this particular quote, because it feels like how most of you are showing up or not showing up, right? Where you think that you have to split yourself into these different parts. If you're going into an interview, you need to be one person. If you are an entrepreneur, you're running a business, you need to show up as one person. If you're working in corporate and you're trying to move up in your career, you need to be one person. If you're a thought leader and you have a powerful message that you want to share with your audience, you need to be one person. You don't. You are not a sum of different parts. You are exactly who you are. And so it's important that you don't slice yourself up into these different pieces to fit into the narrative of what you think you should be when you show up. So let go of the fear. Embrace your authenticity. Define your personal style to represent more of who you are. And show up in the world confidently as the person that you know you are today to achieve the things that you want. And so I want to leave you with one final question. How do you want to exist in the world? When you think about releasing the fear and you think about stepping into your authentic self, answer this question. How do you want to exist in the world? If you're ready to dress yourself and, ready to dress for yourself so that you can feel free, you can have more fun with your style, and you want to wear clothes that truly aligns with who you are right now, then my calendar is open. I am open to working with you in truly helping you to feel as confident on the outside as you want to feel on the inside, and really shifting that focus to you and how you want to represent yourself in the world. So hit the link in my bio. If you're here on LinkedIn, then of course hit the link in my bio, and that link will take you to my calendar where you can schedule a consultation with me. Looking forward to working with as many of you as possible. Thank you all very much for joining. If we haven't connected as yet, definitely hit that follow button on my profile. Thanks for sharing this space with me. Thanks for being here live. Thanks for coming back and watching the replay. It truly means a lot to have you share this space with me and being able to have these type of conversations with you. Until next time, have a wonderful day. Take care.